Hey everybody, welcome to Life Giving Leader Book Study. Tonight we're doing chapter 10 and 11, and I'm going to start us off with chapter 10, A Call to Sweat. And this chapter, I know you guys, it sounded exactly like what the title sounded like. It's all about work, like WERK work, like work, not just work, right? So my mind went straight to scripture and I automatically thought about how often the Bible talks about work. I should have Googled how many times, but I didn't. So just a few verses to throw out there, and they're in Proverbs, of course. Proverbs 13:4 says, "A sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied." And I don't want to be a sluggard. So I love those words, fully satisfied. So I love that. Our desires are fully satisfied when we work. Proverbs 14:23 says, "All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty," which ties right into our business, because we can talk a lot of things, we can plan out a lot of things, but if we don't actually do the work, there is no profit, right? Our paycheck is directly related to the value we have added to the company. And just some thoughts going into work about how biblical it is. We've all heard this. God worked 6 days, he rested on the seventh, right? 6 days, rested on the seventh. Blows my mind. I don't know where weekends really came from because we should be working 6 days. Jesus was a carpenter. So 33 years before his ministry started, he was a carpenter. The disciples, most of them were actually called to the ministry to be a disciple during work, whether it was that they were fishing or, yeah, a lot of them were fishing. But I just think about Luke and the fact that he was a doctor. So, I mean, they all had jobs, right? So it's biblical and godly to work and to work hard and diligently, um, so that our desires are fully satisfied. Okay, so let's dive in. At the top of page 112, he talks about working alongside of our teams. And he is saying, we shouldn't be coaching our teams or training our teams to do anything that we ourselves are not doing. And I know we've all heard that, but if we're really reflecting, when you get off a coaching call, all the homework you just gave somebody, I mean, is that homework you need to do yourself? Like, are these action steps you're taking? And if not, then you shouldn't be having your team do it because you're not doing it yourself. And there's a lot of reasons for that. When we're actually doing the things we're coaching our team to do, we can have that, what's the law of navigation, where we can navigate them through things to come, or you'll have more intuition, right? That's a law of intuition. Yes, you'll have more intuition because you have the experience behind it. So if we are doing the things that we're coaching our team to do, then we're going to be able to help them problem solve before the problems arise, whether it's with mindset or skill set. So lots of reasons to do that. And I love that he says I starred this and I circled it. You never know when your hard work will pay off. Um, so if you're doing all the things, you're taking the right action at some point, I mean, this is the slight edge, at some point, things are going to take off, right? We never know when our team is going to just explode. I'm thinking of Abby right now and the things that are going on her team. Okay, she didn't just start all the actions yesterday or even last month. She's been doing them for a long time. I know because I've been in her inbox asking her about things. So like this is that slight edge effect. It's that compound effect that's happening on Abby's team. So you just never know when all those steps are going to pay off. Okay, so another, Well, actually, I'm not going to say that because I used Abby instead. You're welcome, Abby. I love you. I used you for my example. Okay. So keep going. Let's go to page 113, and there's a beautiful quote on there. Well, I flipped my page and I didn't have to yet. Okay. So page 113, and this is going to go into knowing who you are. He says at the bottom, the flow of life that comes from you doesn't happen when you're looking at another person's leadership. It happens when you lead. And so I kind of thought about our upline, I mean, whether it's Abby or April, that's your immediate upline, or Christina or Brittany. I've heard April tell stories of how when she started, she was trying to duplicate what Christina was doing. Some of it worked, some of it didn't work because she's not Christina. It's the same with me. Y'all have heard my story about trying to brand and do recipes, and I hate recipes. Like, half the time I just throw stuff together. Why am I going to post about recipes when I don't always use them? So like, it was something I hated, but that leads into knowing yourself. When I first started, I thought I knew myself and my personality, but I really didn't. It takes some self-reflection, and we've been talking about these strengths and weakness tests. If you don't have this yet, go get it. Mine came in. I'm super excited about that. But you should be knowing yourself so that you can turn around and lead as you and not April or Abby or Michelle or Caitlin. You're leading as you. And then you're going to feel better too that way. Hard work is going to feel a lot better when it's authentic, when it's coming from a place of purpose, which you're only going to find if you're being you and not somebody else. Okay, so page 115, there's a quote by MLK, and I'm going to read this because I love it. It's at the bottom of that section right before long hours. It says, if a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. I love that last part. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. And I mean, that goes into Colossians 3:23. We should be working as if we are like right there working for the Lord in everything we do, which is going to be working hard. Because I mean, if Jesus was standing right beside me, I wouldn't necessarily be scrolling Facebook or whatever. No, I'd be working really hard. All right, so then he breaks, the author goes into 3 things that are a part of sweat. Okay, sweat or hard work. He talks about long hours, heavy lifting, and getting dirty. All right, and this is the part I've been most excited about. I'm so ready for this. All right, page 115, he says, work like someone is trying to take it all away. And immediately the word that came to mind was urgency for me. If somebody was trying to take my business away, I would be working urgently. And so then I looked up the meaning of urgency. There's 2 different definitions, but they're really the same. It's importance, requiring swift action. So swift is like fast, you're doing it and it's important. And the other definition was an earnest and persistent quality. Okay, so I was thinking about this, and the opposite of urgency in our business is going to be scarcity. However, they can look and it can feel like you're being urgent, but you're really being like, have this scarcity mindset if you're not careful. Ask me how I know. April has had to point this out to me before. So in the chat, What are some things when you think of urgency? What are some things that come to mind in your business? Like, what would it look like to work with urgency? Fear versus abundance. Yeah, so thinking about abundance rather than fear. Excited, yes. Having goals. Others focused, I love it. Consistency. Leading yourself first, yes. Focus on gratitude, ownership, monthly promos, knowing where you are headed, not procrastinating, speaking to their color. Yeah. Those are all really good. Okay. So I did like a T-chart because I'm a teacher and I love a good T-chart. And I did like scarcity versus urgency. And I said a lot of the things y'all said in a bolder, like a broader, not bolder, a broader sense. So scarcity for me, and again, ask me how I know some of these. Scarcity is a lot of copy and pasting, but hey, you did 50 follow-ups. Hot dog. You got your 50 follow-ups. Versus urgency, which looks like connecting and then following up with them about products or business. But it's a lot about relationship, which somebody said others focused. Scarcity is frantically working at bedtime. OMG, I didn't get enough in. I got to do some more. Versus having time blocked your work hours. And then when you go to bed, if you would like to do a little bit more or you feel like you should, sure, go ahead. But it's not like I got to ignore my husband. I can't do this. I got to work. Okay, it's not that. Scarcity is being involved in everything. So you're a yes man. Anybody ever seen that movie, Yes Man? You're a yes woman. Versus urgency, which means you have boundaries and you're able to say no to things that don't align with your priorities. Scarcity, and this one hurts my heart a little. Scarcity looks like being emotionally attached to outcomes, whether it's yours or whether it's your biz builders, being emotionally attached. Yeah, that one hurt me. Urgency looks like being okay with letting someone go and moving on to someone who's hungry. Scarcity looks like busyness, super busy all the time, got all the things going on. Urgency looks like effectiveness, so you're getting results. Scarcity looks like rescuing. Urgency looks like influence, which is leading. Okay, so he goes on to say long hours are only for a season, not forever. I gotta hurry this up. Okay, the next thing he said was heavy lifting. And I actually like to work out. So I was thinking about this and what heavy lifting looks like. And like what are some of the things in our business that I would see as heavy lifting? They require more of you than if you're lifting the 2-pound dumbbell as opposed to the 20-pound dumbbell, right? It's going to take a little bit more effort, a little bit more brain space, a little bit more time, maybe. So I thought about coaching. That's some heavy lifting. Leading events for your team. That's some heavy lifting. Personal growth can be some really heavy lifting, especially heavy. I knew you'd say that, especially if you're really having to work on yourself, which you should be if you're doing personal growth. And analyzing your team, not just checking the back office, but analyzing what's going on. Where are some gaps? What do we need help with? What do I need to support people more with? That's heavy lifting. And y'all, we sign up for these things as a leader. So when you say that you're going to be a leader, this is part of being a life-giving leader in our Plexus business. So you signed up for this. And if you're on this call, you're a leader, because leaders or people who aren't leaders aren't growing. So if you're on this call, you are a leader. And so you should be doing these things. The third thing he talks about with sweat is getting dirty. And there's so many Luke examples I could give you with this, but I'm not going to. On page 117, he gives this really good example about the Spartan race. And I don't know, raise your hand if you've ever seen a Spartan race. No? Nobody on my front screen has seen one. Okay, so Spartan races are like the mud runs on steroids. Like, it's really hard. So my husband did a 10K one about a year ago. And y'all, by the end of it, he doesn't like to be dirty. He had mud everywhere. Like, he told me he got in the shower and was having to like dig it out of his ears. Like, it was in his nose. It was everywhere, right? But when he got finished, he called me and told me he finished and he got a medal. He also said by the end of it, his calves had cramps so much he could barely walk from the work that they had to do. So he was dirty. His calves were cramping, all things he didn't love. But y'all should have heard him. I could hear him smiling on the phone because he was so proud of what he had done. And so in the book there, after that example, he says people who finish this exude joy and happiness, even in the midst of pain and trial. There's joy because they pushed through something that's brutally hard. They got dirty and overcame the obstacles. It's what bonds teams. And so he led into that from when we get dirty and we are doing things dirty and do things, we end up with scars, right? Little boys love scars. And he talks about how little boys talk about that. And then he goes into the scars of Jesus. And he says, it's no wonder the scars of Jesus carried, It's no wonder the scars Jesus carried served as a reminder of his love and sacrifice for us. Your leadership scars will help tell your story. If you choose to avoid getting dirty, you choose to avoid the scars. Without scars, you'll have a very different story. And I read that and I was like, wow. And I had to think about scars that I have in my business. And so these are all times when I was getting real dirty and I came out with some boo-boos and then I had some scars. And I was thinking about that. And I was like, Jesus's scars are a reminder of what he did for us. Scars I have on my body, on my throat, reminder of surgeries or things that have happened to me. In the Bible and the Old Testament, God would have his people make, like monuments or stones. They would stack stones, and it was like a reminder of what happened. And I was in a Sunday school class one time and we called them spiritual markers. And so I was thinking about that and I was like, wow, what if we thought about our failures in our business as business markers instead of failures? So think about that moving forward, that these mess ups, failures, these boo-boos, these scars that we have all had from our businesses, they really can be looked at as something really good, a marker in our business as this is the time I decided to move forward. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 10, and Pamela, take it away.
Hey guys, good evening. So good to be here with you. I asked Rachel before the call and I'm like, do you want me to have some theme music for you to like pop into? Because that would be Rachel's style to come on totally blue doing bam, 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 here I am. Or do we want a dance party? She's feeling a little sick, but I'm like, we can always end with a dance party. No worries about that. So I got you all covered, just so you know. This next chapter we're going to talk about is a call for leaders to sacrifice. I read that and I was like, that seems pretty like common sense. As believers in Jesus, for the majority of us, it is like one of those Bible stories that you hear all the time and you're just kind of blow it off, like the flood or, creation, whatever. And it was like, okay, Pamela, take a step back and read this again and relook at this and really look at how does this impact our lives? We all know we're called to sacrifice. Jesus, obviously, was like the ultimate sacrifice that said yes to the plan of the Father, that laid down his life, redemption story. He gave it all for the sake of others. So then I started thinking, what does that look like for us not to give all, as in sacrifice our lives, but what does it look like to lay down our life for others in our family, in our marriage, in our business? What does that look like? So I want to challenge you guys to think tonight, just as I'm sharing a little bit, what does it look like to lay down your life in this business? And would you make Rachel's T-chart and put martyr on one side and servant leader on the other? Because I think oftentimes we take the concept of what a servant leader is supposed to look like and we become the martyr in doing that in our business. So I just want to challenge you while I'm sharing, go, okay, do I do that? And if so, then am I being the martyr that I actually want people to recognize the sacrifice that I'm giving for the sake of that recognition? That's what a martyr, and I hope that's being understood what I mean by that, not like people who have actually been martyred for the gospel and all that. That's not what I'm saying. Martyr meaning self-seeking attention. Okay, if we're all on the same page there. Okay, good. So he starts out just by sharing how many times he's listened to Frozen. And I'm like, if I could tell you guys how many VeggieTale songs I know by heart and VeggieTale movies, and I'm dating myself because that's what we listened to. Every road trip was a VeggieTale marathon. I was in the front seat with my husband, so I never saw the movies, but I could quote them by word because I heard them over and over and over. So instead of listening to some great classic rock or my Christian music or podcast or Audible or whatever, we listen to VeggieTales over and over and over. And then, like you said, Frozen, for those of you who have kids, you know what this is. Like, you would much rather be doing something else, but you're going to watch that Disney movie for about 2 million times just because that's what your kids love and they never tire of it. So Kelly, get ready. Get ready. You will know all the words and lyrics to every single Disney thing ever just because that's what happens. And you give that easily because you love your kids. It's the same as you have a bag of cookies and there's one left. You've not had one yet and your kids have had 5 and they come look at you like, but mom. You're like, oh, fine, whatever. And so you give the cookie. You give the cookie. So he's talking about wanting a Jeep for his own and not ever having it, giving the cookies away, the movies that we watch, the songs, the lyrics that we hear, just because we've chosen to honor someone else over ourselves. And that's really kind of the definition he gives about what it means to sacrifice. Let me actually read it to you here. So he goes on to say, the definition of sacrifice is giving up of something that you personally want so that other people can have something they need. It wasn't that they want, it was that they need. So how does this portray then in our business? What does that look like? He went on to, and for the sake of time, I want to get to some discussion questions, but I just want to lay it out. He gave the few different categories: time, sleep, conflict, areas that we're to sacrifice in as leaders. Time, conflict, sleep, money. So we're going to jump over some of this. I love the quotes that he has in the book. And he quoted Andy Stanley saying, sacrifice is you putting off for now so that you can have something for later. So think of that mindset whenever we're looking at time. How do I sacrifice time right now? And for me, time and sleep was like the same because I sacrifice time and sleep typically at the same moments when I'm staying up later to do IPA, not out of urgency, but out of, okay, I have goals, you have goals. So you give up time and often that's sleep. What about giving up money? What does that look like for you guys in the business? What does that mean? I thought of examples of, sacrifice, what that would look like for me. It would be maybe giving a gift to a level 1 or a new level 2 or someone who's reached a rank up. That, it could be a personal sacrifice for me to go, okay, I'm going to not have something that I would like myself. Instead of me getting new earrings, I'm going to purchase a pair for my new level 1. I'm putting off something for me for the sake of her, for the sake of them. How does that look like for you guys in your business? On page 124, he's talking about in the 1, 2, 3, third paragraph down, we're looking at here, it says, who or what gets your time might be the clearest indicator of what you value. I thought that was so important. And then at the end of the chapter, he also relates that to, if your top leaders don't get the majority of your time, they're going to not feel the value that you're hoping that they really think that you value them. So what does that look like in how you're structuring your team management? Who are you giving the most of your time to? Where are you sacrificing in other ways? With your family, with, a lot of times in the beginning, and my kids would probably say even now, they feel like my life is out of balance at times with Plexus to them. Okay, so I've sacrificed one good thing for the sake of another. How does that look like in you guys for your life? Like, my goal is that we all have the perfect Plexus week, and we map that out, what that looks like, the perfect family week, and those can merge together. Whenever we have big goals, it seems like we have to kind of, at times, lessen what we've valued on one side in order to reach the goals. And that's a sacrifice. And when you get your family on board, they're much more apt just to support you in that versus to feel like you've compromised for them. So knowing what you're willing to sacrifice in your business is really important. And knowing that there may be different seasons that you sacrifice one thing more so than it's going to require you of another season. And that God is so good that he restores that back to you. So don't think just because you're giving up a lot of family time right now, that you're not going to gain that down the road. Because I think April would probably say family time is something she values so highly. 2 years ago in October, she sacrificed the majority of it, but it was for a short season. So it goes back to that Andy Stanley, you're giving up something right now, present tense, because you're going to gain it in the future. You know that there's a greater goal at the end. So Rachel, I want to get to our questions. Do you want to go first in that, or how would you want to do that?
Yeah, I can go.
Okay.
So thinking about being in, because this goes right along with what Pamela was just talking about, thinking about being in times where we are working more hours. When are times in our business where it's okay for us to not feel guilty about working long hours? Like examples of times that might happen. And second part of this is how or when do you know when it's okay to not work as many hours? Oh, recording. Yes, thank you.